And that includes everybody here, but many others as well who have given of themselves to make this happen. So thank you.
And you might have noticed that some of the format of this conference is a bit different from those that you may have attended in the past. You may have noticed a lot of sharing space outside, and if you look through the program in your summit kit, you notice there are some things that might be brand new, and we'll go through those later in the day. But just to set some general intention for the day and for the rest of the week, thinking about ways to embrace the diversity within this room, within this conference, within this summit. Thinking about it with an air of no expectation, no limitation. So, woo! All right.
Thank you. I like that. So, let's get into it. I would like to introduce the President of the City Council of Geneva, Mr. Pascal Rubeli, who will give an address. Thank you.
Merci. Ici, par M. André Klopman, secrétaire général de la chancellerie. Ville d'hôte de nombreuses organisations actives dans le domaine de la promotion de la paix, Genève est un pôle mondial majeur dans le domaine de la coopération internationale et de la prévention des conflits. La ville de Genève démontre d'ailleurs son engagement en faveur de la paix en soutenant régulièrement des initiatives dans ce domaine. Le concept d'infrastructure de la paix est relativement méconnu. Ce concept peut prendre la forme concrète d'un ministère ou d'un département national de la paix, d'un conseil de paix local, régional ou national, ou encore d'une académie de la paix. Ces infrastructures fournissent un cadre efficace et novateur pour construire la paix. Je dois changer de page. Ces structures sociales soutiennent et favorisent des processus d'une grande diversité, tels que le dialogue, la réconciliation, la médiation, l'éducation pour la paix et la justice réparatrice, entre autres. Ce sommet doit nous permettre de mieux connaître ces différents mécanismes. Il doit également nous en imprégner pour faire rejaillir cet objectif de paix dans nos activités. Le sommet lui-même devient d'ailleurs une infrastructure pour la paix en proposant à ses participants une dynamique sociale de réflexion collective, de création partagée et d'apprentissage par la pratique. Les Nations Unies travaillent maintenant depuis quelque temps sur ce changement de perception personnelle nécessaire pour promouvoir une paix durable. Il va de pair avec le message du Dalai Lama qui appelle à un changement dans le fort intérieur de chacun d'entre nous. Quand le sommet invite ses participants et participantes à prendre part à des cercles de réflexion, à des expositions artistiques, à des sessions et même à des points information sur la paix, il est parfaitement en phase avec la politique menée par la ville de Genève. À notre échelle, nous travaillons en effet avec les mêmes objectifs. Nous développons des actions de proximité qui visent à faire régner la paix dans les quartiers à l'échelle micro-locale. Nous parlions en outre d'efficacité et d'innovation pour qualifier la démarche de votre sommet. Efficace et novateur, on cherche aussi à l'être au sein de la ville de Genève en développant des processus efficients avec des ressources limitées compte tenu de la crise budgétaire actuelle. Eh oui. Nous nous efforçons d'offrir des services et des prestations au plus près des besoins de la population. D'une certaine manière, à l'échelle modeste qui est celle d'une ville, nous travaillons pour la qualité de vie des habitants au quotidien et pour favoriser le mieux vivre ensemble. Ce projet est largement porté par des jeunes qui s'engagent concrètement à appliquer les principes et les pratiques de la paix dans leur travail. La ville les encourage à travers de nombreuses actions ciblées. Notre politique envers la jeunesse est bien entendu axée sur le fait que cette jeunesse représente évidemment l'avenir que nous mettons entre leurs mains. En ville de Genève, nous mettons tout en œuvre pour que dès la petite enfance, dès l'enfance, les futurs citoyens bénéficient d'un cadre de vie propice à leur épanouissement. Nous sommes le 16 septembre. Ce sommet intervient à un moment clé de l'histoire des infrastructures pour la paix. Quand certains remémorent les blessures et les profonds changements intervenus dans les relations internationales depuis ce malheureux 11 décembre 2001, vous notez pour votre part qu'en moins de 12 ans, le monde a assisté à la naissance des 4 premiers ministères pour la paix, ainsi que d'une variété de bureaux, départements et autres institutions au sein des gouvernements pour la promotion de la paix. Ces expériences et d'autres soutenues par les Nations Unies font l'objet de plusieurs études qui seront publiées prochainement, marquant ainsi le début d'une nouvelle ère dans ce domaine. Ce sommet sera donc de reconnaître ces développements et leurs effets en mettant l'accent à la fois sur les succès et les défis qui restent à relever. Aujourd'hui, la ville de Genève soutient toutes les démarches qui peuvent éviter qu'un conflit majeur prenne le dessus sur des options de paix durable. Nous soutenons cet objectif à partir d'initiatives individuelles locales qui s'intègrent dans la réflexion globale qui est portée par votre sommet. Je vous souhaite plein succès dans vos travaux et encore une fois, la ville de Genève remercie les organisateurs de nous avoir offert l'opportunité de vous accueillir, de vous saluer et de mettre en valeur ces actions en faveur de la paix. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
I wish to present you my book and the circle.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Etisham, do you want to say a few words?
So I would say thank to Mr. Pascal Robelli and the arrangement we have seen here, excellent and everything. I wish you thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you. It looks like Etisham has just given you his book he's recently read. Wonderful. Okay. I did want to mention that in addition to the generous funding of the City of Geneva, that the Canton funding has provided 30 scholarships for summit participants today, including my own. So I'm personally very, very grateful to be here. So thank you to all the sponsors, donors, funders, individual and collective in organizations, and people who care and wanted to see this week happen. So thank you to all of you. And to everyone for being present here today. So I wanted to now introduce Karen Barenché, who is the president of GAMIP, in addition to being the executive director of the South African Peace Alliance and an advisory board member of the Western Cape Network for Community Peace and Development. So she'll come and speak with us now and share a bit about GAMIP's history and the process moving forward. So please let us welcome Karen.
Thank you, Santa Tara. I don't know what we would do without Beth, the incredible young woman who's been with us since the Costa Rica summit, which she organized so much of at the tender age of 23, but it looks like the youth are getting older today. So you guys have had a lot of back, I see. So I'm going to turn this way for a little while and just say, Monsieur Robelli, merci beaucoup. I really am so grateful to you for your commitment to peace and for creating this space for us to be here right now. Thank you. Much appreciated. Bonjour. Bienvenue à Genève. That's about the extent of my French, so I wanted to share that, because for the rest, you'll have to have a translator, I'm afraid. So on behalf of the Global Alliance board members and the host summit planning team of Oliver and Louisa, of Pachikatura and UNYP, I bid each of you a warm welcome to this 6th Global Alliance for Ministries and Infrastructures of Peace Summit here in the beautiful city of Geneva. Just take a moment, please, and greet the person who's sitting next to you, either side of you and behind you. Would you just turn around and introduce yourselves? Can you just hold this for me? I will ask it for you in the end, okay? Okay, and now I'm going to ask you all to take a seat. Raise your hand and join me in the silence. Raise your hand and join me in the silence. I'm not sure if that's a hand signal, Oliver, but it's working. And now I'd like you to take that hand and put it on your heart. Close your eyes. And take a moment to breathe. And as you close your eyes, begin to feel your heartbeat in your hand. And imagine the heartbeat of the person sitting next to you that you've just greeted. And feel your heart beating in rhythm with the person sitting next to you. And as you keep breathing, feel the coherence build in the room. Coherence and congruency that brings us to the principle and the spirit of peace. Thank you. I want to welcome to the Global Alliance also the governance and community members that are present here today. And also to our colleague and friend, Paul van Tongeren. I'm not sure if he's here yet. There's a lot to do with this. He's from the organization, civil society organization Network, Infrastructures for Peace. To our wonderful pre-summit workshop facilitator, Dominic Barton. I'm not sure if Dominic is in the room, but to Sissy as well. Thank you. Is Sissy here? Okay, we can't wait to meet her. I want to thank you both. You're from Restorative Circles, Brazil, and it's been absolutely a profound honor to meet you. Thank you. And also to our members, colleagues, students, and friends who are tuning in worldwide via live streaming. So those of you who are sitting here wondering who's watching you, somewhere in the world is. So we thank you for being with us. I also want to take this moment to thank Dominique, who over this past weekend has led us most skillfully through the fascinating process of restorative circles. A model that is at the very heart of Infrastructures for Peace. And it created a great space for us to nest peace. You've seen this bird of peace that didn't have a nest. Thanks to Oliver and his team, it has one. And thanks to Dominique, we now know the system of what that nest can look like. Thank you. And also, we will have the same process of restorative circles available to you through this entire summit. So those of you who have not experienced it, there will be the option for that. Dominique will share more on that later. A vibrant and very dynamic summit has been thoughtfully crafted for you over the past 18 months. Oliver, our board secretary, and lovely Louisa, his wife, and their support team based here in Geneva, designed the concept of nesting peace, creating infrastructures to sustain diversity. I don't quite know what all that means. We're going to learn over this week a lot more about that. They've worked with such drive and innovative spirit to ensure that the next 5 days brings about a much greater awareness and understanding of the work that we do, each other, connecting and networking, and also the possibilities that it creates for you to become involved in case you've just come and said, what's this all about? I invite you to be willing to be present, to be open to the possibilities that an experience like this brings. It can be life-changing. Know that your presence here is contributing most significantly to, and I've lost my place. Know that your presence here is contributing most significantly to the growing culture of peace worldwide. That peace is a principle whose time has come. You are here today to anchor the spirit of peace that is sweeping our world. And Jack has kindly put a quote up on there, which I'm not going to read the whole of, but just really the last sentence that speaks about all sorts of things occurred to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from a decision to commit. You've committed to be here today. It's about the commitment. Raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen events, meetings, and material assistance which no one could have dreamed would have come their way. And because you've committed to be here today, let us see what happens in that flow. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Vision is powerful when it is coupled with commitment and shared responsibly. In 2005, almost a decade ago, a group of people met and founded the Global Alliance for Ministries and Departments of Peace. Some of these founding members are here today. Can I ask that they please stand? Yes, give them a hand. We have Saul Arbus from Canada, Dot Maver from the United States, Penny Joy from Canada, Michael Abkin, United States, and Benny couldn't be with us, and there are a number of our members who wish they could be here. Of those founding members, we salute you for holding that vision, for anchoring it for us. They formed part of a group that reignited a long-held vision. It was a proposition. Dr. Benjamin Rush, who signed the Declaration of Independence in America all those years ago, and I might get this wrong, and Mike will correct me if I do, because he's a stickler for detail. He proposed that they have an Office of Peace. And Dr. Barenché was an African-American, he supported him on that. And it was all those years ago that the concept of an Office of Peace, a Department of Peace, was held. And you know what they said? Nah, it's the new world. We'll never have war again. Where are we today? So thank you to them for holding that vision or starting that spark of vision. We know we have a way to go to still co-create our world as a place where peace is not an abstract concept, but rather a tangible, measurable, quantifiable product of society that is conscious of itself and its right relationship with self and with other people, cultures, and the earth as a whole. Today we come here from all over the world as caring, responsible citizens. You don't come here just because it's a peace summit. Why do you come? Because you care. And you want to continue to pass the torch, generation to generation. That's why it's so exciting to have the youth so involved and putting the summit together. Because we're not giving them the greatest world to live in right now. It needs some work, to say the least. So as we pass this torch, lighting this flame of peace, we do this by holding true to the vision. We continue advocating and implementing the institutions such as ministries and departments of peace in governments, peace education academies, and peace universities and organizations, NGOs, that promote peace in very practical ways to every country in the world. Jack, I think there'll be a slide up there. This is the 6th Global Alliance Peace Summit, and our members and distinguished guests from Nepal, I'm so delighted that you're here, from Nepal, and also from Ghana and Kenya. We also have Kazakhstan and others. They'll be sharing with you the path that they've taken to build active government ministries and departments that deliver reconciliation, dialogue, and peace education in their countries. In fact, Nepal has a Ministry of Peace and Reconstruction that is very active and was not easy. They have 64 tribes that have to sit around a table and agree. I don't know, just the linguistics of it could be a challenge. Just the understanding the nuance of a word must be so challenging. We're looking forward to hearing from you. And then Costa Rica has implemented peace education in its schools across the country nationally. They also have within their Justice Department a Department of Peace, because they found their courts were so slow. They were not creating peace within the communities that the Justice Service was supposed to help. They weren't just. They're working on that, and we salute them. Unfortunately, as I understand it, Costa Rica's not here. They could not be present. Oh, we do? Stand. Costa Rica, Senora. Welcome. Pura vida. I remember that from the summit. It's good. I'm very excited to hear from you. That's wonderful to know you here. The Solomon Islands and South Sudan, they've experienced difficulties in implementing their peace ministries. The summit hosts invited these government officials to attend, and they could not or have not. And the path to peace is therefore not always an easy one. But we have a moral duty to go and support those countries who have had the courage to start the process. I know that the Solomon Islands instituted a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and that Archbishop Desmond Tutu went to go and help them start that. How are they doing? Do we know? Have we had in contact? Have we supported them? It's our moral duty as the GA to do that. I really feel that we need to reach out. Canada and USA, they've presented bills to their governments, and you will hear more about this in the days to come on day 3. Canada has had a huge campaign for many years, since 2003, am I right, Saul? And the USA has also presented their bill to their Congress. It has been rejected. It has been submitted again. And let us keep on keeping on, because that's the only way. And we'll hear more about the campaigns from them too. So take a moment to consider this. Just over 100 years ago, there were no departments of education in governments, right? None of us are 100 years old, but we do know there weren't departments of education 100 years ago. You grew up wealthy, and you had a tutor, if you were lucky, or you worked in the family business, the cobbler, I don't know, the farmer, the baker. And as women, your choices were seriously limited, mainly to marriage, children, and managing the home. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a job in itself. It's a huge job. But it wasn't that you always had the option for much else. Jack, why do I share this with you? You all know that lady up there, Mala Yousafidis, an extraordinary young woman. Today, education is the cornerstone of the developed world and expanding rapidly in developing countries. The demand for education is incredible. Mala Yousafidis is making sure that girls are not left behind in this fast-changing world. What is today's budget for education globally? I couldn't even find the figure. I did try, but it must be, I don't know, billions? What was it 100 years ago? Negligible at best. The visionary person saw only educated people all over the world. Someone had the vision. Marla has a vision, and she's working on it big time. So what about the environment? 50 years ago, there were no departments of environment. There were no budgets for the environment. Now everyone's frantic. We've got climate change happening faster than we know what to do with. Where's the money, the resources to do that? If it's not institutionalized, how do we manage? How do we work this? Peace touches every part of our lives. Economically, financially, socially, and our physical health in the environment and our careers. If you're at a hospital and you can't get medical care, if you can't get access to your pension, that is not peaceful. It's not a way to live. Change happens in governments and countrywide across nations when civil society bands together under a common banner, calling for the change that they seek, either via advocacy or diplomacy, the ballot box, or as we're seeing a lot, uprisings, or by war, when dialogue has broken down. Governments are the outcome of society. They're not the makers of it. We, the people, create governments, either through apathy, doing nothing, or by taking action. People want peace, and as GAMIP, we wish to create cultures of peace globally by establishing ministries and departments of peace in governments with supporting infrastructures that build peace locally, nationally, and internationally. Can we have 1% of the defense budgets of the world to do that? 1%? Maybe we can try for 5%. You like that? Can you imagine if we spent as much on peace as we do on war, where we'd be? It's insane. You and I are visionaries. That is why we are here in this summit. We are visionaries with heart who believe deeply in the common humanity that binds us. We deeply respect and honor each other's cultures and rituals by discovering more about each other, and we build more and more bridges of hope, trust, and understanding. It's not a utopian ideal. It is absolutely and entirely possible. I thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Oh, and you're back.
That didn't take long. Thank you, Jean-Pierre. I'm holding in my hand something so precious. It is a letter from the Dalai Lama. And it was something that it was presented to us. It had been personally received by one of our members who joined us in Costa Rica at the summit. And he sent us a letter supporting our summit in Costa Rica, the fourth one in 2008. And I just hope you don't mind, I'm going to quote. I'm going to read the letter. He says, consequently, I'm convinced that concerned groups and individuals everywhere have a responsibility to work for peace. We have an obligation to promote a new vision of society, one in which war has no place in resolving disputes among states, communities, or individuals, but in which nonviolence is the preeminent value in all human relations. I fully support your goal of building bridges of peace. I believe we should take every opportunity to create harmony wherever we can, and that this summit can make a significant contribution in this direction. I offer my greetings to everyone taking part and my prayers that you will be successful in deciding on practical steps that can be taken. With my prayers and good wishes, the Dalai Lama. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Thanks, I'll put it down to that.
And that letter actually traveled all the way from Costa Rica with me. And I almost left it at the bus stop this morning, so it's a bit of a miracle that it's here. Maybe I'm not supposed to admit that, but hey, we're all human, right? Honesty. Authenticity. Okay. And one other point that I did want to mention is that I believe today we have a representative from the Ministry of Peace from Papua New Guinea. Are they in the room? Yes, welcome. Thank you for being here. And in addition to the endorsement given through that letter by the Dalai Lama, the Global Alliance has also received many other endorsements from Nobel Peace Laureates and also from congresspeople in the US and members of government around the world. So I wanted to draw your attention now to a video we'll show you from Representative Barbara Lee of the US Congress. If we can get it up there. And just to give you an idea of Barbara Lee, she introduced the resolution in the House, House Resolution 808, to create a Department of Peace Building in the US government. And she's also recently appointed by the Obama administration as a representative to the United Nations. So here are her words. Yes?
Part of her background also was in 2003, she was the only member of Congress to vote against the resolution to authorize the United States to go to war in Iraq.
So definitely on the peace team. Here are her words.
Hello, everybody. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the 6th Summit of the Global Alliance for Ministries and Infrastructures for Peace. This important summit brings together over 150 practitioners of peace of all ages from all over the world. I have no doubt that this will be an incredible opportunity for you to learn new peace promotion strategies and collaborate with each other on new peace-building initiatives. The theme of the conference, Nesting Peace, Creating Infrastructures to Sustain Diversity, is very fitting. Earlier this year, I introduced a bill, H.R. 808, which would create a Department of Peace Building in the United States. I am proud to carry on the good work of my good friend and former colleague, Congressman Dennis Kucinich, who introduced a similar bill every year since 2001. This bill would invest in peace-building infrastructures at all levels of the United States government, from supporting community policing initiatives at the local level to facilitating peace summits at the international level. The United States has spent hundreds of billions of dollars on fighting wars, developing military technology, and training soldiers, and is far past time for the United States to also invest in solving conflicts, developing nonviolent strategies of engagement, and training peace builders. As you all know, investing in peace infrastructures will reap tremendous benefits in the long term and help reduce violence at home and abroad. One of the founders of the Global Alliance, the U.S. Peace Alliance, has been a crucial partner in the campaign to create a Department of Peace Building here in the United States. So let me take this opportunity to thank them and all of you for your hard work and your dedication. Together, we can lay the foundation for a culture of peace and work towards a safer world for us today and our children tomorrow. Thank you again.
So now that we've gotten a bit of overview about the work of GAMIP and its position within the wider framework of peace building, I want to draw attention to a bit of a change in the program. Oliver Richmond could not be with us, but one of his colleagues and peers in the field of post-liberal peace building is joining us today from the University for Peace. Victoria Fontaine, she is the program director of International Peace Studies. The University for Peace is in Costa Rica, so I believe we do have a strong representation from our little Central American country. And this topic is a turning point for peace building. So I think we might have a few hopefully controversial things said by Victoria. And if not, at least some that'll definitely spark some debate. So welcome, Victoria.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to try to turn as I speak. So I'm not speaking on behalf of Oliver Richmond, but I wanted to say that his work has deeply inspired me over the years. I started thinking and doing a critique of the peace that my organization, the United Nations, has been doing over the years, for the past 50 years. And somehow I felt that I was some sort of a heretic doing this as part of my organization. And somehow Oliver gave me the backup to actually formulate my ideas better. And so I wanted to try and talk about some of his work today in relation to where we are at the moment, academically speaking, in peace and conflict studies. So I'm going to start with my daughter, because that's always the best way to understand those things. When I was packing for this trip, I always tell her when I leave on a work trip that I'm trying to work for peace somewhere. And she has associated this to something really interesting. So I was packing, and she went to the kitchen, and she found a stack of napkins. And she gave me the napkins, and she said, "Mom, give these to children in need." And for her, that's what she associates to peace. Now, when you're 6 years old, it's very cute. When you are an international body spending billions on napkins, it's not so cute anymore. So when we think about post-liberal peace and what it means, we try to look at the practice of peace for the past 50 years. And we see that organizing an election, speaking about human rights, but bombing the hell out of a place, implementing economic liberalism, but actually supporting inequity throughout the world, is not necessarily a tangible and sustainable way to actually build peace in the world. So we start questioning ourselves. And this happens, for instance, when we see big white SUVs cruising the streets of, I don't know, Casamance in Senegal. We have a lot of people from Casamance here. And we wonder, what is it all for? So post-liberal peace looks at other ways to, let's say, establish sustainable peace in ways that are not so mechanical and that are not so incoherent with the message that we actually seek to bring on the ground. And we specifically look at peace, a peace that will not be co-opted by power. So if you think about, what does it mean being co-opted by power? It means that, let's go and bomb, Libya for the sake of peace, and then bring the peace builder to rebuild everything afterwards. And let's say that the strategic and security aspect of things is the other side of the same coin, which is then, the spending of money in relation to peace. But everybody works for the same thing. Right, so we try to go a little deeper than that. And we look at different ways in which peace is being built within the community level, and how this community level is actually interacting with power. And that's what we call hybridity. Okay? So we look at elements of hybridity, elements of resistance to liberal peace, and how they articulate themselves on the ground. And I've recently met a wonderful group of youngsters from the south of Colombia, in Nariño, and they told me, we are workshop fodder. So we all know cannon fodder, what it means, right? But workshop fodder is the person who's been asked to come to a workshop for years at an end to build peace, because if you're Colombian, you don't know how to make peace, you need somebody like me to come and tell you, right? That's the whole basis of liberal peace. My French passport gives me the authority to go and teach Colombians what peace is about. So the workshop fodder is basically invited to the workshop, cannot, let's say, necessarily express what he or she wants, cannot set the agenda. And this is basically why they are reclaiming, let's say, their right to actually set the agenda when they're invited somewhere, and they're reclaiming the authority to say, we know what works in our area, and we're going to tell you how we can work with you to make it happen. So that's what we look also into in relation to post-liberal peace. And I guess that there comes a very important element, that of agency. Everybody has agency, and not just, again, me coming with my French passport. So Infrastructure for Peace and the work of this summit, I think, is incredibly important, because it locates itself within hybridity and also within what Oliver Richmond calls peace formation. Within liberal peace, we have been taught that to establish peace within a country, we need to set up some infrastructures, some state infrastructures that are going to then turn people into better consumers, which is why we call it liberal peace. And Richmond says, wait a second, what about peace formation, and what about creating infrastructures on the ground that are actually going to support the establishment of networks and processes? So we're not just looking at processes, but we're looking at the way those are going to be, let's say, facilitated logistically. And I think that this is where this summit really can claim its, let's say, its niche. We spoke about niches in the morning. So that's all I wanted to say about post-liberal peace. This is a debate that we've been having within academia for the past, let's say, 7 years. We are now a large bunch of heretics. We just had our second annual conference in Manchester last week. And I think there's somebody else who was, Janine, you're over there. You were there too. And so we encourage you to link up with us, and we really want to link up with you as well to see what we can do together. So thank you for giving us the time, and have a wonderful summit.
Thank you, Victoria. And we'll hear more from Victoria in a conversation tomorrow morning. And she has a new book, Decolonizing Peace, so that'll guide the discussion in the morning tomorrow. So get those ideas ruminating in your mind, and we'll talk about the debate a little more tomorrow. Okay. So how many in this room were at the workshop over the weekend, the pre-summit workshop on restorative circles? Wow, many of us. Great. So now, before we break, I want to introduce Dominic Barter, who's here now joining us, and he was our host for the pre-summit workshop this weekend. The founder of Restorative Circles, coming to us from Rio de Janeiro. So welcome, Dominic.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here. As you might have noticed, the room has been set up in a particular way. And I don't believe that that's an accident. And I wonder if you noticed that it makes a difference. Have you? Yeah, so let's hear some of the differences. What are you noticing that is different about the way that we experience each other when we're sat in this format? It's a circle, and what difference does that make? That's right. We're even more careful about what we're wearing. Yes. A feeling of unity. I'm sorry? Right, nobody is at the back. It certainly does. Yes, it forces me to turn and be always moving, but not a force that I feel is oppressive. I want to look at you all, and I'm aware that when I'm looking at some, others here are looking at my back. So I'm in movement, and it gives me much more a sense of much more dynamism. It's a challenge, but it's a challenge that creates something really interesting. Yeah. So there's something relaxing and different from a tension that you've noticed in conferences, and I'm curious, where is that coming from? Where is that sense of relaxation coming from? The sense of hierarchy. The absence of hierarchy. I wonder if that makes sense to you, that this may be a space that we feel a little safer in. And maybe that's where some of the sense of relaxation is coming from. So I'm particularly interested in spaces which feel safer, particularly spaces in which it is safer to speak the truth. And I find everywhere I go, and no matter who I speak to, people naturally form themselves into circles when their intention is to speak the truth, when their intention is to say those things that are most meaningful to them. Those things that Martin Luther King reminded us that if we stop saying, life begins to drain out of us and out of our institutions. We begin to live a little bit less when we stop saying the things that are most important to us, to each other. And this is the space that people, wherever I've been, have chosen to create the conditions for being able to speak freely to each other, to speak the truth. So I become really interested in circle processes, become really interested in the dynamics of them. And a certain movement that over the last 35 years has been building in many places around the world, that generally goes under the name of restorative justice, has been making very, very similar observations. Restorative justice is a response to the way in which the justice systems that we've been used to building over the last several hundred years, particularly related to the expansion of European colonialism. It's a reaction to the way in which these justice systems have been creating or not creating safety and cohesion in our communities. So restorative justice says we need to rethink the way in which we organize our responses to conflict. I didn't know about restorative justice in any detail at all when I first moved to Rio de Janeiro 21 years ago, following my heart, having fallen in love with someone from there who'd gone home. I just knew that living in that city, I needed in some way to engage with the enormous structural violence that first I experienced as being all around me, but within a few weeks I realized I was already part of. So I wondered for a long time what to do. as I imagine many of you have done before you've started acting, and I heard things that I imagine you might have also have heard. I heard people telling me, only interested in my well-being, telling me, there's nothing you can do, the situation is way too complicated. I heard people saying, nothing will work. I heard people saying, maybe you could do something, but first of all, you need to found an organization. I heard people saying, you might be able to do something if only you had more money, if only you had more connections, if only you had more skills and ability. So I listened to them, I wanted to learn, I took them seriously, but the result was that I didn't do anything. And after a while I realized this isn't good enough, I've got to do something, I've got to in some way engage, because by living there I experienced that I'd been cast in a war. I'd been given a role in a social conflict, which was, even though no one in Rio at that time had declared war on anyone else, the social conflict was very, very intense, and we were losing many, many people. 2.8% of the world's population live in Brazil, but we at that time were responsible for 13.9% of all the murders in the world. And yet no one talked about this, at least no one that I had read was speaking about it at the time. Even though we had the United Nations Summit on the environment in the very year that I arrived. So, after wondering what to do for an awful long time, I decided to get closer to the people who were supposedly on the other side from me of the conflict that I was living in. The people who were excluded from the resources that for no reason that I could see, I occasionally had access to, simply because of where I was born and because of the people I knew when I went there. So I walked into a favela, a shantytown, just slightly under a kilometer from where I was living at the time. A place that I considered myself to be living right next to, but that many people described as being in a completely different region of the city, even though geographically everything was so close. And I want to show you the place that I went into. If you could show the first clip. This is the Santa Marta community in the south zone of Rio. This film was taken about 2 years after I first went in there, so conditions are very much the same.